Welcome to the Rankin Report for Sunday, July 20th, 2025. Not that this makes a whole lot of difference, but the 55th anniversary of the landing of Apollo 11 on the moon. Thank you for joining me today. From the book of 1 Timothy, Paul's first letter to Timothy, 2 verses. The first is from chapter 4, verse 15. Take pains with these things. Be absorbed in them, so that your progress will be evident to all. And then from 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 20 and 21. Timothy, protect what has been entrusted to you, avoiding worldly, empty chatter, and the opposing arguments of what is falsely called knowledge, which some have professed, and thereby have gone astray from the faith. Those of you who have worked with computers and computer programming for decades are probably familiar with the acronym GIGO, or GIGO, G-I-G-O. It stands for garbage in, garbage out, meaning that incorrect programming will lead to poor results or possibly none at all. What the Apostle Paul is saying to Timothy in these passages from his first letter can be summed up in a similar concept: faith in, faith out. And for the title of this message, I suppose I could have used FIFO, but it sounds too much like another popular acronym these days that I'd rather not repeat. Paul is telling his spiritual son to focus not only the scriptures, but the things Paul learned from Jesus himself, as referenced in Galatians chapter 4, verses 24 and 25. Timothy was to be absorbed in them, much as a fan of a particular film director or a musical artist might learn everything there is to know about that person's influences, early development, first and later projects, those regarded as masterpieces, awards, etc. The only difference is what Timothy was learning, he personally was growing in. And what he grew in would serve him both for now in the world and later when out of the body and present with the Lord. For example, I enjoy the 1967 British television series The Prisoner. It was created by and starred the late Patrick McGoohan. You can look up the details of the program on your own, but suffice it to say that I find the show to be far ahead of its time. Indeed, I believe it to be more relevant now than it was in 1967 when it aired as a summer replacement series for a variety show on CBS. But any analysis of The Prisoner is useful only for this life. And while it may have applications for topics such as individuality versus collectivism, rights of the state versus rights of the citizen, and certain social fads, some popular in the 60s, some still carrying on to this day, it does nothing to establish the fact that there is a life after this one, and where you might spend it once you get there. So it has limits. It is knowledge, but only temporarily useful. And if you pay more attention to what is limited rather than what is unlimited, you wander from the faith that is useful for this life and beyond. It is a diversion. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, in establishing his most famous character, Sherlock Holmes, described him in the first story, A Study in Scarlet, as knowing very little about anything that did not pertain to his work, by choice. When Watson, his soon-to-be friend and roommate, informed him of a well-known scientific theory regarding astronomy, he found Holmes knew nothing of it. You appear to be astonished, he said, smiling at my expression of surprise. Now that I do know it, I shall do my best to forget it. To forget it? You see, I consider that a man's brain originally is like a little empty attic, and you have to stock it with such furniture as you choose. A fool takes in all the knowledge which might be useful to him, or might take in all the lumber, pardon me. A fool takes in all the lumber of every sort that he comes across, so that the knowledge which might be useful to him gets crowded out, or at best is jumbled up with a lot of other things, so that he has a difficulty in laying his hands upon it. Now, the skillful workman is very careful indeed as to what he takes into his brain attic. He will have nothing but the tools which may help him in doing his work, but of these he has a large assortment, and all in the most perfect order. It is a mistake to think that that little room has elastic walls and can distend to any extent. Depend upon it, there comes a time when for every addition of knowledge you forget something that you knew before. It is of the highest importance, therefore, not to have useless facts elbowing out the useful ones. Now, I would not take things to this extreme simply because I have found over the years that you never know how God may desire to speak to you in a way that gets your attention. And he may use such things you think have no relevance to the kingdom to teach a lesson about the kingdom. Jesus spoke to the people of his day in parables about things they understood in their everyday lives, such as the parable of the sower. But remember that he also said, "Seek first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you as well." Matthew 6:33. If we make his word our first priority, God will make himself known to us through his creation in the most unexpected and delightful ways. Of course, you will also come to understand that you've picked up some things before you accepted Jesus that you now wish you could get rid of. Things seen or heard or thought that you realize you're better off without. False, useless knowledge. But confess this to God and feed on his word as equally or even more important than your physical food, and he will help clean out the clutter, to use Holmes's analogy, and make more room for himself. Remember, Jesus countered Satan's temptation to use his divine power for his own physical needs with, "It is written. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God." Matthew 4:4, Luke 4:4, quoting Deuteronomy 8:3. Fear of the Lord, which is actually not terror, but a deep reverence and respect for God, should make anything connected to him of prime importance in our lives. That includes a deeper connection to him, certainly deeper than we have had in past decades. We cannot do church as usual anymore because God is moving in our nation and in the world. As the body of Christ, we must move with him. Anything less runs the risk of us wandering from and the shipwreck of our faith and, by extension, our lives. Pray for the Great Awakening, no king but Jesus, independence forever. Please continue to pray for Central Texas, which got hit with even more rain this past week, exacerbating the death and damage from floods they have already experienced, and for New Mexico as well, portions of which have suffered in like manner. And please continue to pray for the nation, that God will continue to move us back to the covenant our founders made with him. And also pray for peace and tranquility and pray against the plans of the enemy to seek, to kill, and to destroy. That's the Rankin Report for Sunday, July 20th, 2025. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and have a great day.